Time, 2104. 27-year-old female infected with unknown pathogen. Blood analysis indicates virus. Provisional name is ACT-12. Deceased had traveled in China before returning home 2 weeks ago. That must have been pre-quarantine. Unknown if had contact with livestock, but I can definitely see evidence of insect bites. Deceased had reported coughing and sneezing with a high fever. I'm seeing a nasty rash, some abscesses around the abdominal cavity. Clear signs of immune suppression. Cause of death appears to be catastrophic organ failure. Findings match reports coming out of China. This is highly concerning. The deceased may still be infectious. I'm halting the autopsy in order to notify the authorities. Request a full lockdown of this facility, effective immediately.
Cool. So, hi everyone. Let's get started. So that was the trailer for Plague Inc. Evolved, which is going to be the subject of the talk today. Some of you may recognize the voice of the Doctor in there. It's a little Easter egg which I managed to I was quite pleased to arrange. We're going to be discussing the trailer in a bit more detail later on, so try not to forget it. And I think it's quite helpful to just see a bit about what Plague Inc. Evolved actually is. So my name is James Vaughan. I'm the founder of Ndemic Creations and the developer of Plague Inc. I'm quite new to the games industry. I used to be a business strategy consultant, and then 4 years ago I decided I was going to try and give myself a creative challenge and make a game. I ended up making Plague Inc. as a hobby, and it really did really well when released, so I was able to quit my old job, and I've been lucky enough to work on Plague Inc. ever since. I'm here today to explore how and why our mobile game succeeded on Steam. More and more mobile developers are turning their attention to Steam. They're often without thinking about it enough. Many mobile games have been ported onto PC, but they rarely do very well. They often attract a lot of negative attention from gamers instead. It was pretty nerve-wracking when we were working out how to take Plague Inc. onto PC, and I wanted to share some of the lessons that we learned and some of the thought processes that we did with you all today in the hope that it might help other developers working out their strategies to take mobile games onto Steam, or for them to work out if it's the right thing for them to do. So we're going to start off by looking at the opportunities and challenges that Steam provided for us in coming from mobile, and then we're going to go into detail on the logic and the approaches that we use to design around these challenges. After that, we'll look at whether it actually worked, and we'll also have a look at a few other interesting observations that we made whilst taking this dangerous journey from mobile to Steam. And then finally, we'll wrap things up with some recommendations on when I think you should go from mobile to Steam and when it might be better to go from Steam to mobile instead. After that, we'll have some time for questions. So before we get started on that, though, I think a quick disclaimer/warning. I'm going to focus purely on issues that are linked on going from mobile to Steam. I'm not going to bother talking about all the infinite number of problems and challenges that you have making a Steam game in general. I'm also going to use the words Steam and PC interchangeably sometimes. I've been trying to stop myself, but I haven't been able to stamp it out quite yet. But most importantly, I think, let's remember that this is the games industry and nobody really has a fucking clue about anything. Everybody's sort of got opinions and theories, but nobody knows anything for sure. So this is going to be one case study for you guys, and I hope it will be helpful for you. So, First of all, what actually is Plague Inc? You'll have seen from the trailer, it's not a very nice game. It involves designing a custom pathogen to infect and kill everybody in the world before humanity can come up with a cure for you. So it's a bit sinister. It launched originally on mobile for iOS and Android. It launched in May 2012, and it's available for 99 cents. It also has a number of IAPs in there in the form of expansion packs. Some examples of these would be a necrovirus, a zombie virus that I added to it. We also did a partnership with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes to add the simian flu in. These are kind of big new content features. These are the reason why Plague Inc. has stuck around for so long and why it's done so well. We've had over 45 million people play the game so far. Over 45 million players, and we've had around 900,000 games played every day on average. It was the third best-selling mobile game of 2014 in the US, and it was the #1 best-selling iPhone game of 2014 in China, and it's similar numbers elsewhere in the world where we've localized it. So it's done quite well on mobile, and that's been a great gift, because it's meant that I was able to start thinking, what else did I want to do with Plague Inc? And once it was clear that Plague Inc was a success, I was able to start thinking a bit about getting it onto PC. And in mid-2013, I was able to really start planning in earnest. The first thing I needed to do was work out why I wanted to bring it onto Plague Inc. There's vast numbers of different reasons, and I know this is the business money track, so I've got a big list of business reasons to share with you all. But before I go into those, I want to tell you the real reasons, the unofficial reasons. I just thought it would be really fun to take a game that I'd already made elsewhere and then bring it onto Steam with all the challenges and all the cool things that could be done with it. I'm a PC gamer at heart, and there was a certain appeal to being able to take the baby that I'd created and then put it on the platform that started me off on my love for games. So I already really wanted to do it. And the game designer in me also was sort of leaping at this chance to be able to take my big list of stuff that I hadn't been able to put in the game initially and then realize these through Steam. I only did about 50% of my design documents, so I had way more ideas than I could handle, and I wanted to try and squeeze a few of those in there. I also wanted to share it just with more people, like get more people playing the game. It's nice seeing people playing and enjoying a game that you have. So those were the kind of the unofficial reasons. Now, putting my sort of business hat back on, there were a number of other reasons that were also important, and they were useful for me to justify it to myself. A key reason is that I could make more money from the game. I'd already put a lot of work into creating a game that I was proud of, and so I've got the game already. Let's try and make sure we've got it on as many stores as possible so that as many people as possible can get it there. I wanted to strengthen the Plague Inc brand. Like, every platform that it's available on, it builds up the reputation of the game more. It makes it more likely that people are going to tell their friends about it and that people are going to have heard of the game. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just going to increase the size of this slide. There we go. I wanted to extend the overall life of the game. The more people I've got playing it, the longer I can justify continuing to support it and continuing to add new content to it. So just getting that extra player base was vitally important, as games are always going to sort of lose players over time. Another big one I wanted to do is diversify company revenues. For mobile developers, you've got Apple and you've got Google, and that's where all of your money is coming from. And it's nice to have a certain amount of other revenue streams coming in as well. So I wanted to get it onto PC, start getting those other revenue streams, make sure that the company wasn't as dependent on any single source. It would also be a foundation for future games. I don't know what games I'm going to want to make in the future, but I do know that it's incredibly important to start building up a reputation with gamers, showing people that you can be trusted to make a game that they would enjoy playing, that you can make a good quality game that's worthy of their money. As I mentioned before, I was quite new to the industry, so I kind of need to start building those credentials sooner rather than later. And with Plague Inc, I had a game that I was proud of, so it's as good a place to start as any. So I felt, when I started looking at it in earnest, there were several main ways to take Plague Inc from mobile to Steam, which could really fall into 4 buckets. They've all got various strengths and weaknesses. Option 1 in the bottom left corner is you take exactly the same game as you've got on mobile and you charge exactly the same price for it on Steam, and that's it. It's easy, it's relatively low cost, hopefully there won't be too much technical stuff, but the negatives for that are you don't really get to do any fun game design stuff, you can't really expand your vision for the game, expand the appeal to other people. And also, potentially you're missing out on a big opportunity. What if you were able to add a load of new stuff to the game, to build it into something bigger and better than it was already? Option 2 takes the same game and charges more money for it, or puts in more additional monetization methods. This is, again, it's easy and low cost, but I consider it quite risky. This is the key thing that people hate when they can see a game that's costing lots more money on Steam than it is on mobile. And there's still no guarantee that it's going to drive lots of extra revenue. Like, maybe you'll make some extra money in the short term, but what you're missing out here, again, is that opportunity to design something that's better, that's got more complexity, that you can use to justify charging a higher price for it. Option 3 is you make a better game, but you don't charge more money for it. It's a nice thing to do, but at the end of the day, we're all here to be able to sort of feed ourselves as well. And so I'm not quite sure about that one, because you've got all the challenges of expanding the game, but you aren't getting any of the rewards of expanding the game. And then you've got option 4, which is where you expand the game and you then charge a higher price for it. You get to scratch the game design itch. You hopefully get to create something which allows you to create a better value for players, and they're prepared to pay for it. But on the flip side of that, it is going to be hard. You can't just like click your fingers and you've got a whole new extra bit of game to bolt on. You're going to have to go to the game design mine and sort of do a bit of mining to be able to actually create something that you can make there. And that will also cost money, making the game worthy then. So, as you can probably tell from when I was explaining those, I was quite biased towards a certain option. For me, I felt option 4 was the only one that would support my aims for Plague Inc. on PC. I didn't just want to do a straightforward port or cash grab. I wanted to make something which I could be really proud of, which would scratch that PC gamer itch. I wanted it to be supercharged, improved version with lots of things that I hadn't been able to do in the original game. It would be bigger, it would be better, it would be built from scratch for PC. And I would charge a fair price for it. I didn't want to be trapped by that mobile price point, so I had to make sure it had enough content to justify a higher price, and we'll touch on that a bit more later. But making Plague Inc. on PC wouldn't be easy to do it successfully. It's really fucking hard to make any game successful on Steam. You've got to make a good game, you've got to capture player imagination, you've got to market it well, you've got to get lucky, you've got to engage with players. All of this stuff has got to be done. However, incredibly unfairly in my opinion, games that are coming from mobile have got to do all of that, and they've got to do significantly more as well. They have to defeat what I've called the mobile stigma, and I found a lovely iPhone photo of a devil there, which I thought I'd share with everyone. But what actually is the mobile stigma? I've kind of defined the mobile stigma as the belief, the average Steam player's belief that all mobile games which originate, or all games which originate from mobile are sent by the devil. It basically means that in order to be successful, games coming from mobile have got to meet a much higher standard than any equivalent game would that had not come from mobile. I mean, this is a really big deal. Like, you see there's a lot of negativity about early access, but people get even more angry and passionate about games coming from mobile. There's been quite a lot of talks about early access games and how you need to be very careful about dealing with players on that. It's infinitely worse coming from mobile. And if you do mobile and early access, then you're really in trouble, which we actually did do early access as well. But so we've got this issue that we need to deal with, and I wanted to look into it in more detail, because the more I looked into it, the more I realized that the sad fact is that PC gamers are right to be wary of mobile games coming to Steam. In the past, they've frequently been burnt by straight PC ports of mobile games, which are 10 or 20 times the price, providing an inferior playing experience to the original mobile version, and often providing gameplay or monetization options that don't really align with Steam player expectations. And here are some of the key emotions or prejudices that I felt made up this mobile stigma, and which I felt a Plague Inc. game on Steam would need to have to defend itself against. Mobile games are not proper games. They're overpriced compared to mobile. They rely on pay-to-win mechanics, and they're just exploiting the player. They're not designed for PC. And if I've already got it on mobile, what's the point about getting it again on another platform? It's the same game. If I wasn't careful, all of these emotions and prejudices could deal huge damage to Plague Inc. when it came onto Steam, and it could potentially prevent it from being the game that I wanted it to be, from having the success that it would need to be to justify the investment. It would result in unhappy players who felt like they'd been cheated. It would damage the brand. It could damage the brand and reputation of Plague Inc. It could damage the original game when people start complaining about it, and then it destroys the viral loop that we've got where players currently recommend it to their friends. If they don't feel passionate about the game, enthusiastic about the game anymore, they're not going to share it with people. It would result in wasted time, effort, and money. We're a very small studio. We don't have time to be working on 15 different things at once. If we're going to focus on one thing, we've got to hit it out of the park. Otherwise, that's a whole load of time gone down the drain, which we're not going to get back. And maybe most importantly, it would completely burn sort of chances I've got for future projects on PC in the future. Like Steam players, so they've got a long memory. They're going to remember if they feel that they've been exploited or not, or a game that's been released which wasn't really worth their money. And I didn't want to kind of shut that whole market out in the future. So to ignore all these kind of nasty negatives, we had to consider the mobile stigma in every aspect of the game design and make sure to neutralize it. Otherwise, all that hard work would be for nothing. So I felt we had two main weapons that we could use against it: visible differentiation and clear communication. Basically, we had to make it really obvious that the PC version was different to the mobile version, that it was improved. And then we had to clearly communicate to players these differences, because if the players don't see it, then it doesn't matter what stuff we've done. So we had to make absolutely clear that those messages were being heard. So now I'm going to go in more detail into exactly what we did to achieve this differentiation and to meet the communication goals that we had. So we'll start off with the big stuff. The two single biggest additions to the PC version are custom scenarios and multiplayer. These are our big tentpole features which we want to sort of really use as the shining light for why Plague Inc. on PC would be better. And for instance, in the custom scenario creator, we open up all of the data that we use to make the game so that people can play around and create their own diseases, create their own worlds. They can customize the disease that would be evolved. They can change country stats. They can manipulate various variables. They can use an event and scripting engine to create incredibly complex scenarios. And then they could publish them online for other people to enjoy or suffer through, as the case may be. And it's been fantastic actually seeing how players have taken to this system. There's custom scenarios for everybody. I went online yesterday, I think it was, to get the latest view of what the most popular custom scenarios are, and it proved my point wonderfully. We have Rise of the Xenomorphs, which is a great scenario. It's been played by a huge number of people, and that's quite a serious, gritty scenario. And then you'll see later on someone else in the Steam community has risen to the opportunity, and we've got Rise of the Fridges, which was made by Noob McNooby, who was inspired by his friend killing him with a fridge in Gary's mod. I haven't actually played this one, but it's managed to get quite high up on the popular scenarios list. So you've got a lot of fun stuff being made there. The other part was multiplayer, which is actually still in development and is being quite eagerly awaited. But this is really where we have one player versus the other player. Their diseases are battling to see who can wipe out more of humanity, set against this backdrop of the world doing everything it can to stay alive and nuking really infected countries and doing all sorts of things to try and slow you down whilst you're trying to still fuck over the other player at the same time. And it's going to be really exciting when this comes out, and players are already looking forward to it a lot. Here we are actually doing a playtest in the office. Unfortunately, I lost this playtest significantly, so we're having to do some rebalancing to make sure that doesn't happen again. So these Major tentpole features are really key to differentiate from the mobile vision. I mean, they're major tentpole features for a reason, and they're also major development efforts as well. They're incredibly time-intensive to do, adding to the core game. So it's very important to make sure that you pick the right ones, the ones that are really going to resonate with Steam players, that are going to capture their imagination, that they're going to want to talk to people about. They need to be really hard for players to ignore and overlook. They need to significantly increase the depth and the life of the game, so that if we're increasing the price point, players are feeling like they're getting increased value for money from these things. These also had the advantage of appealing to the more hardcore and involved Steam players who are wanting more from their gaming experience. They will be able to strategize and work out what the optimal strategy is on multiplayer. They're also able to look at some pages of variables which will give them a headache and think, wow, okay, there's some real depth behind this. It provides marketing headlines, great talking points, so that when somebody's explaining the game to their friends, they go, oh, it's like the mobile version, but it's got multiplayer and scenario creator. And it just, all these things, they build together to support the higher price point, the $15 instead of the 99 cents that the mobile version goes for. And as a bonus on these features, it actually helped discourage piracy. I didn't want to get distracted with DRM or anything like that, but these, by their very nature, they're both set online. And so we're able to make sure that people have got to have a proper Steam account in order to be using them. So that was a nice little bonus from it. The next thing we did was we significantly improved the graphics. So this was actually a key reason why we rebuilt the game engine from scratch. We wanted to take advantage of the improved PC hardware. There's obviously quite a few constraints on mobile, especially when the game was created. Obviously, we don't need to worry about that. But more significantly, we now had the funds to sort of invest in the graphics a bit more and have a bit of fancy animation, other very sophisticated things which I was scared of when we made the first game. Because you've got to remember, Plague Inc. was made as a hobby. I spent less than $5,000 making the original game, so there wasn't that much money to be spending on fancy graphics, and the more complicated the game, the less likely it was it could be shipped. With all of that out of the way, though, we could really do some fun stuff. So we took the original 2D world map and replaced it with a 3D map, and it's quite hard to actually see the benefit of this in a 2D image, but we're able to have a much more intriguing disease dot spread. The disease dots pulse as they slowly spread around the countries. We can show the trajectories of planes. You can look at them and see where they're going to be flying to rather than wait to see where they end up going. And we did various other things as well. We took the evolution screen and added 3D models of the disease which respond as you evolve your disease. We added a body scanner in the bottom corner which shows which of the organs will be impacted by the relevant traits that you were going to evolve for your disease. We also managed to take the world screen, which we could take some extra space for, and we were able to show additional stats about the country. We could show people where in the world that country was, because we actually find a lot of people improve their geography through Plague Inc., trying to hunt down various random countries which are resisting them. And we could also have these city cams, which are in the bottom left, which help people see the situation on the ground as their disease continues to spread throughout the game. The wonderful thing about these graphical improvements is that they are impossible to ignore. Every time the player is doing anything about the game, they are constantly reminded that they are playing an improved version of the game. There's no way you can look at somebody playing the game and think, ooh, are they playing the mobile version? Are they playing the Steam version? It is categorical which version they're playing. And it makes it feel shiny and new, even for existing Plague Inc. players. It's great for marketing materials. You can generate wonderful screenshots. You can hit people on the head repeatedly with the fact it is different. And it just makes it harder for people to say that it's identical to the mobile version. Even our friendly trolls on the Steam forums have to admit that the graphics look different, so their comments always have to start with, yes, it has improved graphics, but, and then go into whatever they want to say. So we put them on the back foot a little bit, which is nice. Another important thing we did was the UI. All of the UI was redesigned from scratch to suit the PC. We had to think about things like distance between the options when you're not using a finger to touch there. You've got the greater precision from the cursor. Double click can give you significant extra options, and obviously significantly fewer space constraints. We could take the main menu and streamline it to be something much more PC orientated. Selecting your disease could become a lot more elegant and let people really get a feel for the fact they're kind of in a laboratory selecting their various different pathogens that they want to play with today. We could significantly expand the disease screen to, again, make use of those 3D disease models, but also take some of the stats and the graphs that we provide players and put them right in front of the player. We can show them the evolution history so they can see how their disease has evolved over time. And we can also give details on what genes the player is currently using. Redesigning the UI is so important. It's what makes it feel like a PC game. It prevents that kind of feeling sometimes when you've got, oh, there's too much space here or too little space here. You sometimes get that with console ports as well. Something just feels a bit jarring sometimes. Because we started from scratch, there were no remnants of mobile. There was never a time when we had to make a trade-off of, oh, well, we could change this, but it's a lot easier just to keep it as it is, and hopefully no one will notice. It was PC or nothing. And that really ensured an optimum and a natural playing experience for players. And I think players have definitely appreciated that it was designed from scratch, that they feel they've got a bespoke game which is absolutely targeted to their platform. It helps make it premium, supporting the price point, as other elements have. And in quite a lot of cases, it actually improves on the original mobile experience because we've got that extra space. We're able, like I said, bringing data into the game earlier. We can just make sure that the players got all the information that they need to create a world-ending pathogen, which is important. We also made huge numbers of other enhancements, lots of numerous smaller additions throughout the game, often of which they were heavily influenced by player feedback from the mobile version. The aim for these was to have medium or high impact while still being relatively low effort. So we had things like the body scanner I mentioned before. We added in more save slots, which was a major requested feature from players so they could have multiple games on the go. Just very simple things like letting people have longer disease names. We no longer were limited by space there. The city cams I pointed out before, we can have an image for each country, which just again makes the world feel like it's a more unique place. There's no similarities between the countries. Adding end-game replays. These have been really popular with YouTubers in particular because they're able to play the game and then they get to the end of it and they can just hit the play button and quickly their whole triumph or abject failure is repeated and they can have a nice quick summary whilst discussing the game. Even relatively minor things like animating the zombie hordes. So here we have a group of zombies, 20,000 zombies about to hit Greenland, and just making them look a bit cooler, making the world feel a bit more alive. These are all things that cumulatively, they just provide a general feeling of improvement and polish, almost an aura of these things, and you can't quite put your finger on it, but it feels better. It's appreciated by existing fans especially, because it's targeting the feedback that they've given in the past, and sometimes you can still bundle up all of these improvements into marketing bullet points, which are obviously quite important, but you can take the city cams or the body scanner, all of the data and talk to people about it in a group. So even though individually they're not significant enough, together they're quite powerful. And again, these just help support the broader price argument. There are lots of simple, generic, quick wins that can help out as well. A wonderful example of this is hotkeys. I'm always amazed when games don't use hotkeys properly. Having well thought out hotkeys shows that you care. It improves the player experience significantly, and it's an easy way to defend yourself against a criticism that people always love to lob against mobile games or other ported games. And as a wonderful bonus, it makes testing your game so much easier. We added hotkeys into Plague Inc. On PC really early on because I was playing it with just a mouse and I found my hand trying to use hotkeys that weren't even written yet just because it would feel natural. It was what was required. And so that's if you're finding yourself wanting to press a button there, you've got to put these things in there. And yet I don't understand why sometimes you just don't get them. People don't put these hotkeys in there. Also, it's important to let people customize them. We haven't actually done that yet. We get requests for it, but I think, to be honest, if you target your hotkeys appropriately and you maybe have multiple options built into it, maybe the customizing isn't as important. We'll see how many people actually do customize them when we put that option in. Other examples of quick wins are just using the core Steam or PC functionality. Steam achievements, trading cards. Trading cards, it's just a simple graphical asset which you can upload through a web interface. There's no reason not to do it, and yet quite often you don't see trading cards coming in for weeks or months until after the game's been launched. Cloud save, a bit more technically complicated, but still it's something that's appreciated by the player. Video settings. The hardcore PC guys hate it when they can't customize video settings. And it's not the end of the world to just provide a few resolution settings, to provide a few dev settings to disable or enable various little graphical toggles. And all of these things, they're mostly easy and they're absolute no-brainers, and it makes some players feel loved. Maybe most players won't care, they won't even notice, but the few who do care about it very passionately. And it's just worth doing these things. So I've explained some of the key ways that we differentiated Plague Inc. on PC. But as I mentioned before, that doesn't mean anything if you can't clearly communicate the impact and value to prospective players. So how do we go about doing that? First of all, it's on messaging. So you've got to use all of the hard work that you've just put in to craft a really compelling story. This story is so important, you're going to be using it so much, you've got to spend several days just constantly brainstorming on it. You've got to polish the story repeatedly, and then when you've got something that you're happy with, you've got to tell it again and again and again to people. You've got to have it on your store page. You've got to use it to the press. You've got to use it in press releases. The trailer I showed before, at the end, we're there just hitting in those features. Multiplayer, custom scenario creator, improved graphics. Like those, you've got to make people never be able to look at anything to do with your game without having those messages continually given to them. Because it's easy to overlook it the first time, the second time, but eventually you will get through to people and you will help them understand the value of what you've created. The other major place to use it is in customer support, both by emails and the Steam forums. You're going to have people, especially in the first few weeks, you're going to have people battling over, is this the Antichrist? Is this a wonderful game? Is it awful? Is it average? Is it a waste of money? All of these things are going to be going on. And you've got to make it easy for fans to educate other people about it, because A, you can't handle everybody who's going to be coming at you with questions, and B, you're biased. It doesn't really matter what you think. Of course you're going to love it. So really, you've got to enable the players to defend you instead. And the way to do that is by having those short, sharp, easily understood messages, a web page that they can link to in arguments. Like, these aren't rocket science, but it's about doing it consistently and repeatedly and having that clear messaging. And I think in particular, we found that the first few weeks of launch are vital for customer support, because that's almost when you've got hordes of people who don't know anything about the game coming on, and that's really when they make up their mind about, are you a good developer or a bad developer? And after the first few weeks of doing support pretty much 24 hours a day, it began to kind of solidify down. We had our community of players who would help defend us. The arguments had already been decided. It was just a case of linking players back to the argument, saying, oh, don't ask again if it's the same as mobile. It's not. It's been said here, here, and here, and here. So definitely worth, in those first few weeks especially, pulling out all the stops and doing nothing except for sitting in front of your computer typing, or copy-pasting if you've got your story and prepared correctly. The game name was also something that we found was very important from a communication point of view because of what we were trying to do with it. We wanted to make sure that we avoided any confusion with players around which features were in which version of the game. It's quite scary taking our existing mobile game and slightly fragmenting it, and we didn't want to. There was always going to be a bit of misunderstanding anyway, but we needed to make sure that players, when we were talking about the multiplayer that we're working on, we could say the game name so that players didn't feel it was coming onto the mobile version. Then you've got misset expectations and everyone gets upset and angry. For the name itself, we wanted something that clearly said same game but better. We wanted to maintain the brand, so we definitely wanted to have Plague Inc. as the core thing so that when people search for it online, they were able to find all the existing good stuff. They can find stories about the CDC, they can find stories about various scientists talking about their game. We didn't want to lose any of that, so we had to keep Plague Inc. as the core name. And we wanted to keeping the theme. So we ended up going with Plague Inc. Evolved, which kind of ticks all of those boxes, and it sounds like it's part of the same sort of diseasey environment. It wasn't easy getting there. That took about 3 months of discussions, but I'm quite happy with it in the end. A more subtle thing to think about also is the game logo. Now, I don't know actually how important this is, but I felt it was. We wanted to support that branding difference by having something that, again, had the same brand, but it wasn't quite identical. It looked a bit sharper. It fits in with the PC UI. It makes more use of hexes in the background to, again, tie back into that PC experience. And this is something we use on lots of marketing materials, so it was worth playing around with it a bit, just so that players can see graphically, okay, they're talking about this one or this one, but to an uninformed person, they will see both of them, and they will still recognize that it's Plague Inc. So now we go on to the really big stuff which people trip up on, price. So price is the big elephant in the room here, which is so hard to get right, and communicating the price is so incredibly important. I think the key thing really here is that you have to accept that players will compare price against mobile. When I was looking at how other games were doing it, it felt often like sometimes people were just hoping that players wouldn't notice that it was available on the App Store for a tenth of the price, and maybe they'd be okay with it. And they will go and look, and they will feel ripped off if they see the game is here for 99 cents and you're asking me to pay $10. That's really fucking unfair. Why is that? And they're going to want to know answers about it. So you've got to meet them head on and clearly explain why it costs more. But you can't just explain it using the actual logic that you came up with the price, because if you said, oh, well, I'm going to charge $10 because I've had to completely retool the engine to make it work on PC, the player doesn't give a fuck about that. Like, that is not a player-relevant thing. All they want to do is play the game. And it's so tempting to be like, well, it's not fair. I've got this new resolution in it, it was all this wonderful technical stuff, and we're basically geniuses for making it work, and we deserve to be paid for it. But you have to break it down into things that the player can understand. Going back to our big tentpole features, it's multiplayer, it's custom scenario creator, it's improved graphics, it's all tangible things that the player can touch. And you'll see on the right-hand side of the slide, we've got a sort of a section from our FAQs here, and we're using the same messaging over and over again. How much does it cost? It costs this much because it's got this expansion, these expansion packs, it's got loads of new content, it's got significant all new features for PC and Mac, including multiplayer and custom scenario creator. It's very helpful if you can justify the price difference mathematically, because it's logic. Players feel they can't, it's harder to argue with logic. And so you'll see down on the second part of that image, we're saying, why does it cost $14.99? Well, it's because the mobile version costs 99 cents, but when you take all of the expansion packs, that costs $6.99. And actually, it's a couple more dollars because we've added more expansion packs since writing this. And so then we're just in a position where it's actually, you're paying $5 for multiplayer, custom scenario creator, improved graphics, and having it on PC with PC UI and stuff. And that suddenly feels much less significant. It's not $1 versus 15. It's, oh, I'm paying a few extra dollars for that. So you need to use this, clearly message it, and then educate the players about it. Make sure that you're repeating this logic everywhere, that you've got it in places where it can easily be found. And then be prepared to repeat it over and over and over again until the players agree with you and buy in with it, and then they can start telling other people about it, giving that more unbiased, honest approach to it. Once you've won over your fans, then that's the main hurdle done. But you've got to be very careful about how you go about trying to make sure that you're getting the money, not just from in the price, but also around other forms of monetization or DLC. I think coming from mobile, you're quite used to charging for expansion packs and adding additional content in. It's worked very well for us on Plague Inc. on mobile, but on Steam, because of the mobile stigma, like, players will be watching for any sign at all of mobile behavior. We have people coming on, has it got IAPs in? Are you going to add IAPs in it? Is it pay to win still? And for us at least, we just decided not to take any risks on it. We're going to strip out all of the fact that on mobile you can pay to go past, to go on to the next level if you can't complete a level. And we actually softened the game progression. So rather than having to complete it on medium difficulty, you just have to complete it on casual difficulty. To get the cheats, it's brutal instead of mega brutal. We just took it all down a level to make sure that players didn't ever feel like they were actually being asked to pay, even though actually that's the proper way I made the game. You should be able to complete it like that if you're a good player. And we do even have people asking still for us to let people have the option to pay, but it's not worth the potential reputational damage that you could get. So how did things go? We launched in early access on the 20th of February 2014, and it went really well. It vastly exceeded my expectations. The thing I'm most proud about are the ratings, the reviews. We've got an overwhelmingly positive review score, so I think it's 95% positive, and that puts us in the top 2% of all Steam games. I think there's around just under 7,000 reviews making that up. Like, this isn't some Metacritic thing. It's not a journalist deciding that it's good or anything else. This is players talking or sort of voting with their mouse clicks, and it's nothing we can manipulate or encourage or anything else. This just shows that players value the game that we've created, and I'm immensely proud of that statistic. Of course, we need to make money so that we can keep on making games, and the sales have been very healthy. Across all channels on PC, the year one sales have been 500,000 units. Which has obviously been nice. And then a minor aside, we've also, I think, been one of around the top 20 pirated games of the year. Every now and again, I go onto a file sharing site and have a look, and we're always quite high up on the list, which is maybe it's a bit annoying, but it's also nice that at least they care enough to download it, and it's not some mobile piece of crap that's not worth clogging up their bandwidth. So that's a nice thing to have as well. So I feel that making a high-quality PC-focused game helped us beat the mobile stigma, even at a $15 price point. The approach we took worked, and we were able to show that it can come from mobile, but it can still be a proper game. It can cost more than on mobile, but it can still be a fair price. And we've now got to a point where even the trolls mostly accept it. Like we don't get many trolls coming along trying to poke the mobile hornet nest anymore, which is quite nice. They found other things, but we've pretty much won the argument there. And that's thanks mostly to help from the players who help communicate the message that we're trying to get to people and help make sure that people realize the truth about the game. Before wrapping up, I thought it'd be interesting to take a quick diversion and look at a few of the key differences that I noticed when going from mobile to Steam. Player numbers are way smaller. So and we've got I think it's 4,000 custom scenarios have been made by people. I'm really proud of that number. Like, it takes hours to learn how to use the custom scenario creator, and then to make a scenario creator, so a custom scenario takes even longer. But from a mobile mindset, that number's not even worth holding a space in your brain for. It's so tiny. But on PC, it makes a difference. Sales numbers, again, 500,000 units. Doesn't sound that impressive when you put it in mobile context, but on Steam, at a premium price point, it's very significant. The thing I really like about Steam is that it gives me a much closer connection to players. The Steam community is immensely valuable. It can be toxic and make you feel like shit if you're having some forward management issues, but if managed correctly, you just get a really close link to players. You can have a dialogue with people and understand what's happening in the game, what they like, what they don't. And I haven't been able to get that anywhere when with a mobile game. I don't think the social links are as relevant. We have a way where people can tweet and share about how they've just wiped out the world with the disease. It gets used a lot on mobile. People don't really bother with it on Steam too much. Analytics, I've struggled a bit to find sort of great examples of where analytics are being used on Steam, but I'm not sure if that's just me failing to look properly, but there definitely seems to be less focus on analytics than there are in mobile. And, I mean, finally, I think I found the Steam platform is very friendly for games. It's been designed with games in mind from the beginning, whereas the mobile stores have to do games and lots of other stuff as well. And they're both functional, but I think it shows it's quite pleasurable using Steam to be uploading games and changing stuff and having control over what's happening. So what do I recommend other people do, bearing in mind the disclaimer I mentioned at the beginning? I think you can absolutely go from mobile to Steam successfully, but only if you can beat the mobile stigma. You've got to there's no one approach fits all. You're going to have to find your own way that will work with your own plans for the game. Personally, I think option 1 is quite a safe way to do it, and it's hopefully might make you some money, but maybe you're leaving money on the table. And option 4, I mean, I'm biased, but that's worked out quite nicely for us. Option 3, I don't think makes business sense, and option 2, I would be a bit wary of, because you see quite a lot of games getting tripped up when they try that approach. I think you need to think how players will respond, clearly communicate it, and just be very careful and sensitive to Steam players. Here are a few danger signs that I think are worth looking out for if you are bringing a game from mobile to Steam. If these are popping up, it doesn't mean you're going wrong necessarily, but it's worth being careful and looking at stuff again. If you've got the price higher for the same game, if you can't explain why that price is higher without going away from player-relevant stuff, if there are no PC-specific features, if you're not using Steam functionality, if you're not using hotkeys even, if you find it hard to communicate the benefits, the differentiations that you've done to the player, that's potentially difficult. And if you're selling consumable currency, that's really fucking worrying. Like that's a landmine waiting to step on. If you can find any other way, I would highly recommend it. Just because it's a red rag to a bull, it doesn't matter how well you've done it. It's just the fact that it's there. It fucks your whole story up. And selling multiple DLC at launch, I mean, people don't like this when any game does it, but again, because of the mobile stigma, you've got to be extra careful. And if you're worried about these things, then most people seem to feel that going on Steam first and then going to mobile instead makes the most sense. And I think it does definitely make your life a lot easier, although I haven't tried it myself. And I don't want to scare everybody completely off going mobile to Steam, because there are also benefits that you get going from mobile to Steam. You've got an existing game to build on, so all of the tech, the designs, the bug fixes they're all there. You don't have to worry about that. You can focus purely on making it perfect for PC. You've got that existing fan base and brand awareness. So when we launched Plague Inc. Evolved, it instantly went into the top 10, maybe top 15 best-selling on Steam without us doing any advertising or anything, and that was purely because we already had this existing player base that we told about, who were excited about it. There's a lot of cross-sell potential. So at the moment, we haven't yet told the mobile players officially that the PC version exists, but it's going to be very interesting to see how many people actually then decide they want to get the PC version. We do send people from the PC version to the mobile version, and it works quite well, but because of the size of numbers, it's not actually that significant if all of the Steam players go and get the mobile version. And I think the only other thing which is really quite helpful is that you're forced to design for the more restrictive platform from the beginning. I think it's vitally important that you get, if you're working really hard on a game, you've got to get that game on as many platforms as possible. But it's a lot easier to start off with the core game, which works on every platform, and then add bells and whistles to it, than have a wonderful game on PC and try and cram it into a very small mobile box where you have to make all these design sacrifices. So I think designing with mobile from the beginning there can be quite powerful. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with my next game yet, but I think if I had to pick at the moment, I would probably still go mobile to Steam just because it's worked for me so far, although that's no guarantee of future success. So my recommendation for you, if you're trying to go from mobile to Steam, understand why you want to go onto PC. What are your objectives? And then work out how the mobile stigma threatens you. If you're going to charge the same price as on mobile, then some of the stuff already isn't relevant for you. But work out where those potential pain points are. Design your approach to neutralize the mobile stigma. I've given an example of how that might work here. And then finally, it's a bit corny, but have fun. Like I've really, really fucking enjoyed taking Plague Inc. onto PC. It's just been so rewarding, and I can't recommend it enough. So there we are. Thanks for sticking around for that. If anybody's got any questions, we can take questions. Otherwise, people can all run away and get free drinks while they're going from wherever the parties are. Thank you. Hi there.
The question is, how did you avoid the pitfall of simultaneous multiplayer between mobile and PC?
Well, because I'm not a particularly technically competent person, so anything to do with advanced technology like that really scares me. And it was something we thought about briefly and then just thought the benefits aren't necessarily there. There's a reason why I haven't done multiplayer on mobile, and that's because it's really, in my opinion at least, it's going to be really complicated, and the game is already doing really, really well on mobile. There's no need to add that bit in. So I never really wanted to do it, and it hasn't really been asked that much, I think, because players are hoping and understanding that we're going to be using more of the PC capabilities to make the multiplayer more complex and more sophisticated. And I think just very clear communication from the beginning that it was going to be on PC and not across the multiplayer just sets the expectations and prevents people from building false hopes and stuff.
Oh, can you hear me? Oh, yeah. There we go. Jason Calkins. So you mentioned briefly analytics. Did you have a lot of analytics in the mobile version, and did you miss them when you went to Steam, or did you not have them, or could you just talk a little more about that?
So we're very unsophisticated when it comes to analytics. We don't do any of the monetization-related analytics. We do have relatively simple analytics which we can use to see how players are using the game, where they're getting to, even like what the most popular diseases are, how many people are playing various scenarios. And so we took all that and we put it into the Steam version as well. So it's been helpful getting that. It's more just a case of it's hard to find benchmarks or comparable metrics for other games. So if there's a stat about how many players have finished a game, which always seems to float around. But beyond that, like, is it good if you've managed to get X number of players getting 75% of the way through the game? Is it good if they're spending this much time in it? It's hard to know quite how you're doing compared to other people. Oh, yes, there.
Thanks for the talk again. So Plague Incorporated is really popular internationally on the mobile platforms. And I was interested, do you have any information you can share on how the PC version is doing internationally?
Yep. So we localized it, Plague Evolved, in all the languages that we localized the mobile version on. And it's done very well there as well. It's hard to know how well relatively it's done in various countries because you can't get like country-specific sales charts. But Russia is certainly a major market for us, or it was before the exchange rates all shifted around. And Germany's been very big, France. I don't have specific numbers on the top of my head, but localizing it has definitely been worth it. We see a big surge. When we did localize it, we saw a big increase in country revenues.
And just a quick follow-up. Has the country distribution been very different from mobile to PC?
I don't know, actually. Russia, I believe, is certainly more intensive just because of the scale of Russia. And China, so China's a lot less. It's obviously very popular in China, but we don't have the same install base on Steam. So apart from those two, I don't have any stats at the top of my head.
Right. Thank you.
No worries.
Hi.
Yep.
This is Luke from Disney. Love your game. We actually play it quite a bit in the office.
Thank you.
My question would be, were there any key learnings you've had from launching the game on Steam that you were able to take and feed back into the mobile version?
So I haven't launched anything else on mobile since, so there's probably lots of stuff which I haven't necessarily thought about. I think one thing that has been interesting is seeing how players have responded to things like we added in some special cheats into the PC version, and that made them that was sort of hugely popular. So we took that back into iOS. The custom scenarios. So they've been so popular. It would be nice if we can find some way to at least get the scenarios themselves onto iOS. So the community as a whole is shaping Plague Inc. And so obviously PC represents a huge increase in that community. So they are putting in feedback and stuff. It is very important for me to have the core game completely transmissible between all the different platforms. So if I spend several months making a new disease type, I can share it with everyone rather than have to waste the work. But I don't have anything absolutely sort of wonderful that I can share from that point of view, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Hi. What chances do you see in taking a freemium ad-based mobile game to a premium version on Steam?
So I think it'd be very hard, because I think that the whole mobile stigma stuff, that they're looking for any opportunity to be really angry about it, and Plague Inc. had it bad enough at 99 cents, and we are free on Android as well, actually, but it's kind of still a premium free game, if that makes sense. I think it would be very challenging, but if you had the right value proposition and you had the right messaging, and you could really easily show why this game is worth that money, then you've got a chance, but it's certainly going to be an interesting challenge to have. Any other questions? No. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for listening, and take care.